Lucy Grant had never been summoned to the Imperial throne room before. In the 5 years since humanity joined the galactic sovereignty, she had worked quietly in the xenobiology labs, studying alien creatures and keeping her head down. Humans were still new to the galaxy. They were still proving themselves. They did not get invited to meet emperors. Yet here she stood, surrounded by beings that towered over her small frame. The delegates slithered past on their serpentine bodies, clicked their mandibles in disapproval at her presence. 100 different species filled the massive chamber, and every single one of them looked at the human woman with something between curiosity and contempt. The throne itself sat atop a platform of black crystal that seemed to drink in the light. Upon it rested Emperor IX, ruler of 3,000 worlds and commander of the largest military force in known space. His body was that of a massive insect, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected Lucy's tiny image 1,000 times over. "You are the Emperor said. His voice echoed through translation devices embedded in the walls. "You study animals." "Yes, Your Majesty," Lucy replied. Her voice did not shake. She had learned long ago that showing fear only made things worse. "You will come with me." The Emperor rose from his throne, and the entire court gasped. Rulers did not simply walk away from formal proceedings. Yet IX descended from his platform and moved toward a door that Lucy had not noticed before. It was hidden in the shadows, carved from the same light-eating crystal as the throne. She followed because she had no choice. They walked for a long time through corridors that grew older and darker with each step. The walls changed from polished metal to ancient stone to something that looked almost organic. Lucy realized they were descending deep beneath the palace, far below the surface of the capital world. "Do you know what lies beneath the Imperial Citadel?" the Emperor asked without turning around. "No, Your Majesty." "The Eternal Vault, a prison built before my dynasty existed, before the sovereignty existed. It holds beings that cannot be killed but cannot be allowed to roam free." Lucy felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard rumors of such a place, but she had assumed they were legends meant to frighten children. "The last caretaker of the vault died 47 years ago," the Emperor continued. "No one has been willing to replace him. No one has been able to replace him." "Why not?" They stopped before a massive door covered in warnings written in languages Lucy did not recognize. Some of the symbols seemed to move when she looked at them directly. "Because of what lives in Cell 1. The door opened, and Lucy felt a wave of something wash over her. It was not heat or cold or sound. It was more like a pressure against her mind, a whisper at the edge of her thoughts. She saw shapes in the darkness beyond the door. She saw eyes watching her from the shadows. "The creature in Cell 1 is called the Emperor said. It has been imprisoned for 3,821 years. It emits a psychic field that causes paralysis and death in all known species. Every caretaker we have sent has died of fear before even entering its chamber." Lucy watched as a guard collapsed to the ground, twitching and foaming at the mouth. 2 more guards dragged the body away without comment. This was clearly a common occurrence. "Why are you showing me this?" Lucy asked. "Because you are still standing." She looked down at herself. The pressure against her mind was still there, but it felt distant and unimportant, like hearing music from another room. "Humans are psychically null," the Emperor explained. "Your species cannot send or receive telepathic communications. You are blind and deaf to an entire spectrum of existence. We considered this a weakness when we first encountered your kind. And now I am sending you to feed the monster that has killed everyone else who tried." Lucy should have been afraid. She should have begged for mercy or demanded an explanation or at least asked for hazard pay. Instead, she felt something she had not expected. She felt curious. "What does it eat?" she asked. The Emperor made a sound that might have been laughter. "We do not know. It has not eaten in 3,000 years. Perhaps it does not need to. Perhaps it has been starving this entire time. You will find out. He handed her a container of synthesized protein. It was the same bland nutrition paste that fed half the sovereignty's military forces. The creature was a god once, the emperor said quietly. Or so the old records claim. Gods should not be allowed to starve. Lucy took the container and walked through the door. The darkness swallowed her immediately, but emergency lights flickered to life as she moved deeper into the vault. She passed cells that contained things she could not describe, shapes that hurt to look at, sounds that should not have existed. None of them affected her. She walked through nightmares like a woman strolling through a garden. Cell 1 was at the very bottom of the vault. The door was covered in more warnings than all the others combined. Lucy counted inscriptions in at least 200 different languages, all saying variations of the same thing. Do not enter, do not look, do not listen, run. She opened the door anyway. The chamber beyond was enormous, carved from black crystal that seemed to stretch into infinity. And there, in the center of that impossible space, lay the... It was beautiful. The creature resembled a cat from Earth, but scaled up to impossible proportions. 15 meters long at least, with fur the color of midnight that seemed to absorb every photon of light that touched it. Its eyes were closed, but Lucy could see movement beneath the lids, galaxies of gold swirling in dreams that had lasted. She walked closer. The pressure against her mind grew stronger, but it still felt like nothing more than a gentle breeze. She set the container of food on the ground near one massive paw. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is Lucy. I brought you something to eat." The opened its eyes. Lucy had seen stars born in laboratory simulations. She had watched nebulae collapse into new solar systems. None of it compared to the ancient, infinite sadness she saw in those golden eyes. The creature did not move. It did not attack. It simply looked at her with an expression she recognized from her work with traumatized animals back on Earth. It was afraid. "It is okay," Lucy whispered. "I am not going to hurt you." She sat down on the cold crystal floor, crossing her legs beneath her. She had nowhere else to be. She had nothing else to do. If the Emperor wanted her to feed this creature, then she would stay here until it was ready to eat. They watched her for a long time. Then slowly it blinked. Lucy smiled. It was a start. Lucy returned to Cell 1 every day for a week. Each morning she descended through the nightmare corridors of the Eternal Vault, walked past horrors that would have killed any other species, and sat on the cold floor beside a creature that had not moved in nearly 4,000 years. She brought food every time. The synthesized protein sat untouched in growing piles near this massive pause. Lucy did not push. She did not demand. She simply sat and talked. "I grew up on a farm in Kansas," she told the creature on the third day. "We had cats, regular-sized ones, I mean. They used to hide under the porch when strangers came around. Sometimes it took weeks before they would let anyone new touch them." The golden eyes tracked her movements, but it gave no other response. "My grandmother used to say that patience was the only language animals truly understood. She was probably right. She was right about most things." On the fourth day, Lucy noticed something different. This breathing had changed. It was no longer the shallow, barely perceptible rhythm of something waiting to die. The creature was actually inhaling and exhaling with something approaching normal depth. "You can hear me, can you not?" Lucy asked softly. "You understand what I am saying?" The blinked once, twice. "I am going to take that as a yes." She reached into her bag and pulled out something different this time. Not the bland protein paste that the Imperial kitchens provided, but a small package of dried fish that she had purchased from a Terran supply shop in the capital city. It had cost her a week's wages. "I thought you might like something with actual flavor," she said, unwrapping the package. The smell of smoked salmon filled the chamber. I do not know if you even eat meat, but you look like a cat, and every cat I have ever known loved fish." She placed a piece of the dried salmon on the ground, closer to this head than she had dared to go before. The creature's nostrils flared, its whiskers twitched. For the first time since Lucy had entered this cell, the moved. It was not a dramatic movement. The creature simply stretched its neck forward, bringing its massive head close enough to smell the offering. Lucy held her breath. She could feel the warmth radiating from this fur, could see individual strands of midnight blue shifting like grass in an invisible wind. The creature's tongue emerged. It was rough and pink, just like a regular cat's tongue, just large enough to crush her if it wanted to. It touched the piece of salmon and pulled it into a mouth filled with teeth the size of swords. It chewed, it swallowed. It looked at Lucy with something new in its ancient eyes. Hunger. She fed it the entire package of dried fish, piece by piece. When the food was gone, the creature let out a sound that shook the walls of the chamber. It was a rumble so deep that Lucy felt it in her bones. It took her a moment to recognize what it was. There was purring. Lucy laughed. She could not help it. After nearly 4,000 years, after countless deaths and failed attempts, this imprisoned god was purring because a human woman had fed it some fish. "I will bring more tomorrow," she promised. "I will bring as much as you want." The lowered its head to the ground and closed its eyes, but this time it did not look like something waiting for death. It looked like something resting, something that finally felt safe enough to sleep. Lucy stayed for another hour, just watching. Then she climbed back through the vault and returned to the surface. She did not know that her every movement had been recorded. She did not know that surveillance drones had captured every moment of her interaction with the creature. She did not know that her footage was being broadcast to the imperial court at that very moment. The throne room was in chaos when Emperor IX watched the small human woman feed the unkillable monster that had haunted his family's reign for. Advisors screamed at each other. Military commanders demanded that the vault be sealed. Religious leaders called it an omen of coming destruction. Only Advisor, the Serpentine who had served 3 emperors before this one, remained calm. "The creature is responding to her," observed, his forked tongue tasting the air as if the footage had a scent. "It has not responded to anything in recorded history." "That is what concerns me," the Emperor replied. "Should we remove the human?" IX was silent for a long moment. His compound eyes reflected the image of Lucy Grant, sitting cross-legged on the floor of Cell 1, talking to a god as if it were a frightened kitten. "No," he finally said, "not yet. I want to see what happens next." Back in the vault, Lucy had no idea she was being watched. She only knew that when she returned the next morning with 3 more packages of dried fish, that was waiting for her. Its head was lifted off the ground. Its eyes were open and alert. Its tail, which had lain motionless for thousands of years, swished slowly back and forth. "Good morning," Lucy said with a smile. "Are you hungry?" The creature made a sound that was half purr and half growl. It was the most beautiful thing Lucy had ever heard. She sat down and began to feed the god, 1 piece of fish at a time. And as she fed it, she talked. She told about Earth, about the oceans and the mountains and the forests. She told it about humanity's journey to the stars, about the wonder and the fear and the determination that had carried her species beyond their home world. They listened, and for the first time in 3,821 years, it did not feel alone. Neither did Lucy. She had found something in this darkness beneath the palace. She had found a connection that transcended species and time and all the barriers that the galaxy placed between living things. She had found a friend. The question was whether the sovereignty would let her keep it. 3 months passed. Lucy descended into the vault every morning and emerged every evening, and the creature that had terrorized the galaxy began to heal. It was eating regularly now. It had started moving around its cell, stretching muscles that had been frozen for thousands of years. Its fur had regained a luster that made it look less like a shadow and more like a piece of the night sky given physical form, and it had begun to communicate. Lucy could not receive telepathic messages the way other species could. Her mind was closed to that kind of transmission, but they found a way around this limitation. It sent images instead of words, simple pictures that appeared in Lucy's mind like memories she had never actually experienced. The first image was a world covered in silver forests. Trees with metallic leaves stretched toward a purple sky, and between them walked creatures of impossible grace. They were tall and slender, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. They moved in groups, speaking to each other through touches and gestures that Lucy somehow understood represented deep affection. "Who are they?" she asked aloud. They sent another image. The same creatures, but now they were gathered around a smaller version of the itself. They were feeding it, grooming it, singing to it in voices that made Lucy's heart ache even though she could not hear the actual sound. They were your family, Lucy realized, your people. The creature's eyes closed, and Lucy felt a wave of grief so profound that it nearly knocked her off her feet. This was what the psychic emanation had been all along. Not an attack, not a weapon, just sorrow so vast and deep that it had killed everyone who felt it. But Lucy could only receive images, not emotions. The grief touched her mind and slid away like water off stone. "What happened to them?" she whispered. They showed her. Fire, ships descending from the sky, the silver forests burning, the graceful beings running and screaming and falling, and through it all, the image of a figure standing on the bridge of a warship, giving orders with cold efficiency. Lucy recognized the species. She had seen it every day since arriving on Prime. The Emperor's people. She left the vault that evening with a weight in her chest that had nothing to do with the physical climb. She needed answers. She needed to know if what they had shown her was true. The Imperial Archives were located in a tower on the eastern edge of the Citadel. Lucy had never been inside, but her clearance as a caretaker of the Eternal Vault apparently opened doors that would have been closed to her before. Guards stepped aside. Scholars bowed their heads. Everyone seemed afraid of what she might represent. The archivist was an owl-like being with enormous eyes and feathers that had turned gray with age. His name was, and he had served in the archives for longer than most civilizations had existed. "You come seeking forbidden knowledge," said when Lucy entered his chamber. It was not a question. "I come seeking truth." They are often the same thing. The archivist gestured toward a chair carved from ancient wood. Lucy sat, studied her with those massive eyes for a long moment before speaking again. "You wish to know about the—" Lucy felt her breath catch. "Is that what they were called, the people in the silver forests?" "You have seen them, the creature has shown you." "Yes." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. He turned to a shelf behind him and retrieved a book bound in material that looked disturbingly like skin. "They were the first great civilization in this region of space," he said, opening the book to pages covered in flowing script. "They were peaceful. They were wise. They created art and music and philosophy that still influences our culture today, though most do not know its source." "What happened to them?" "The first emperor happened to them." Told her the story. They had been a young species when they first encountered They had been welcomed, educated, given access to technology that advanced their civilization by thousands of years, and they had repaid this kindness with betrayal. "The first emperor saw thee as a threat," explained. "Not because they were hostile, but because they were better, more advanced, more beloved by other species. He decided that the only way for his people to become great was to eliminate the competition. The war lasted 200 years. They would not fight back at first. It was against their nature. By the time they realized they had no choice, it was too late. Their world was burning. Their people were dying. and their guardian, the being they had as a god for 10,000 generations, was captured and imprisoned. Though Lucy said, yes, the emperor could not kill it, nothing could kill it, so he locked it away in the deepest prison he could build and erase from history. He rewrote the records to paint his conquest as liberation. He turned genocide into heroism. Lucy felt sick. Does the current emperor know? Every emperor knows. The truth is passed down from ruler to ruler. It is their greatest secret and their greatest shame. She returned to the vault that night even though her shift was over. She found the awake and waiting, its golden eyes reflecting light that should not have existed in that darkness. I know, Lucy said softly. I know what happened to your children. The creature sent her one final image. It was not a memory this time. It was a word, rendered in a flowing script that matched the writing in its forbidden book. Lucy did not know the language, but somehow she understood its meaning. Friend. She sat down beside thee and placed her hand on its massive paw. The fur was warm and soft, and she could feel a heartbeat beneath it that had endured for. I am your friend, she promised, and I am going to find a way to make this right. The purred, and the sound echoed through the vault like distant thunder. Somewhere above them, in the gleaming towers of the imperial citadel, an emperor sat on a throne built atop bones he pretended did not exist. His day of reckoning was coming. He just did not know it yet. 6 months after Lucy first descended into the eternal vault, the stood for the first time in nearly 4,000 years. It happened without warning. Lucy had arrived for her morning visit, carrying the usual supplies of fish and meat that she had learned to acquire from sympathetic traders in the capital. She was telling the creature about a documentary she had watched the night before, something about ocean life on Earth, when the simply rose to its feet. The movement was graceful despite the of stillness. Muscles that should have atrophied flexed beneath that midnight fur. Legs that should have forgotten how to bear weight carried the massive body with ease. The stretched like any cat waking from a long nap, and Lucy watched in amazement as it walked a slow circle around its cell. You are beautiful, she whispered. The creature turned its golden eyes toward her and sent an image. Lucy herself, sitting on the cold floor with fish in her hands, speaking soft words to a broken god. The meaning was clear. You made this possible. Word of this recovery spread through the citadel faster than Lucy could have imagined. By the time she emerged from the vault that afternoon, Commander Dale was waiting for her. Was one of the few humans who had achieved significant rank within the sovereignty's military structure. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that had seen too many battles. He had been Lucy's unofficial protector since she arrived on Prime, the one who made sure the other species did not push humans around too badly. You need to be careful, he said as they walked through the corridors of the Citadel. The court is talking about nothing but you and that creature. Is that a problem? It could be. The Emperor's advisors are nervous. A recovering god is not something they planned for. Lucy stopped walking. The is not a threat, it just wants to be left in peace. I believe you, but belief does not matter in politics. Perception matters. And right now, a lot of powerful beings perceive you as someone who is awakening something that should stay asleep. She did not have time to respond. A messenger appeared and informed her that Emperor IX demanded her presence in the throne room immediately. The walk to the throne room felt longer than usual. Lucy passed through crowds of aliens who stared at her with expressions she could not read. Some looked afraid, some looked angry. A few, mostly younger beings, looked almost hopeful. The Emperor sat upon his throne of black crystal, surrounded by advisors and guards. Advisor coiled at his right hand, serpentine body wrapped in formal robes, forked tongue flickering with anticipation. You have exceeded expectations, IX said. The creature eats, the creature moves, the creature appears to trust you. It does, Your Majesty. Tell me how. Lucy had prepared for this question. She had known it would come eventually. But now that the moment had arrived, she found that she did not want to explain her methods in clinical terms. She wanted the Emperor to understand something deeper. "I treated it with kindness," she said simply. "I talked to it. I fed it. I sat with it when it was afraid. I did what anyone should do when they encounter a being in pain. It killed hundreds of my predecessors, servants, simply by existing near them. It was not trying to kill them. It was mourning. Its psychic emanation is grief, Your Majesty, that has been crying for its children for nearly 4,000 years, and every being who entered that chamber felt that grief and could not survive it." The throne room fell silent. Advisor's tongue stopped flickering. Even the guards seemed to hold their breath. "Its children," the Emperor repeated slowly, "though the species your ancestor exterminated." There was no point in pretending she did not know. Lucy had seen the truth in this memories. She had confirmed it in the forbidden archives. The Emperor would either accept her honesty or have her executed for it. IX did neither. He simply stared at her with those compound eyes that revealed nothing of what he felt. "Leave us," he commanded. Everyone obeyed except Advisor, who remained coiled at his master's side. Once the room was empty, the Emperor spoke again. "You know secrets that could destroy my dynasty. I know truths that have been hidden for too long. The same thing from my perspective." Lucy met his gaze without flinching. "I have no interest in destroying anything, Your Majesty. I only want to help the heal. And if healing the means revealing what my ancestors did, if it means the entire sovereignty learns that our power is built on genocide and lies." She had no answer for that. She had not thought that far ahead. The Emperor turned too. "See that she returns to the vault. Ensure she has everything she needs." Lucy bowed and left the throne room, feeling the weight of unspoken threats pressing against her shoulders. She did not see the look that passed between the Emperor and his advisor. She did not hear the orders that whispered to his servants as she walked away. She returned to the vault and descended to Cell 1, where they waited. The creature sensed her distress immediately. It sent images of comfort, memories of warm sunlight and peaceful forests, and the feeling of being surrounded by those who loved you. "I think I made things worse," Lucy admitted. "I think the Emperor is scared of what you represent." The sent another image, darkness closing in from all sides. Lucy was about to ask what it meant when she heard a sound that did not belong in the vault. Metal grinding against metal, locks engaging, systems powering down. She ran to the door of Cell 1 and found it sealed. She tried the manual release. Nothing. She tried the emergency override. Nothing. The lights flickered and died, leaving only the faint glow of the golden eyes. "No," Lucy whispered. "No, no, no." She understood now. The Emperor had not decided to trust her. He had decided to eliminate the problem. If the vault was sealed, if no one could enter or leave, then eventually both she and the would die. The secret would be safe forever. Lucy sank to her knees in the darkness. She had supplies for perhaps 2 weeks. After that, she would starve, and the, weakened from its long imprisonment, might not survive much longer. A sound broke through her despair. It was the deep, rumbling purr that she had learned to love over the past 6 months. The moved through the darkness and curled its massive body around her, creating a warm shelter of midnight fur and ancient loyalty. It was protecting her. This broken god, this creature that had been imprisoned and forgotten and left to grieve alone for, was using its remaining strength to keep one small human safe. Lucy leaned against that warm fur and closed her eyes. If this was how she died, at least she would not die alone. Far above them, Commander received word of what had been done, and for the first time in his long military career, he began to plan a mutiny. The humans moved through the citadel like ghosts. Commander had spent 30 years learning the secrets of the Imperial Palace, mapping its corridors and cataloging its weaknesses. He had never planned to use that knowledge. He had hoped he would never need to. But one of his own had been buried alive, and that changed everything. Word spread through the human community in whispers and encrypted messages. Lucy Grant, the who had tamed an unkillable god, had been sealed in the vault by order of advisor. The Emperor had either approved the action or was ignorant of it. Either way, a human life was being thrown away to protect secrets that should never have been kept. 300 humans served in various capacities throughout the Citadel. Engineers and technicians and translators and soldiers. They were scattered across different departments, treated as useful tools by the species that had conquered the galaxy before humanity even developed fire. But they remembered what it meant to be human. They remembered that their kind did not abandon their own. In the vault, Lucy was losing track of time. The darkness was absolute except for the glow of the eyes. She had rationed her food carefully, eating only enough to stay conscious. The creature had stopped eating entirely, saving what remained for her. "You need your strength," she told it weakly. "You should eat." The scent and image, a mother bird feeding its chicks while starving itself. The meaning was clear. This was what love looked like across any species, across any distance of time. Lucy told stories to keep herself awake. She talked about her grandmother's farm and the cats that had lived under the porch. She talked about the first time she saw an alien species and the wonder that had filled her heart. She talked about how strange it was that she had traveled across the galaxy only to find her truest friend in a prison beneath an emperor's throne. "I do not regret this," she whispered. "Whatever happens, I want you to know that meeting you was worth everything." The pressed its massive head against her small body. It was trembling, and Lucy realized with horror that the creature was gathering its strength for something, using reserves it could not afford to spend. "What are you doing?" she asked. The creature sent no image this time. Instead, it simply acted. The psychic power erupted outward like a star being born. Lucy felt nothing because her mind was closed to such things. But across the sovereignty, across 3,000 worlds and countless ships and stations, every telepathically sensitive being in existence experienced the same thing at the same moment. They saw the silver forests and the peaceful people and the love they had shared with their guardian god. They saw the first emperor's ships descending from the sky. They saw the burning and the dying and the desperate final moments of a civilization that had never wished anyone harm. They saw the truth. And then they saw Lucy Grant, sitting in the darkness with a broken god, offering kindness without expectation of return. The vision lasted only seconds, but it changed everything. On Prime, the guards outside the vault dropped their weapons. The technicians who maintained the locks rushed to their stations and began working to open the sealed doors. The common citizens flooded into the streets, demanding answers from leaders who had suddenly been exposed as heirs to genocide. Emperor IX felt the vision wash through his mind and understood immediately what had happened. He summoned his personal guard and descended toward the vault, determined to end this before it could spread any further. But Commander was already there. The humans had breached the outer doors using override codes they should not have possessed. They were working on the inner seals when the Emperor arrived with his soldiers. "Stand aside," IX commanded. "That creature is a threat to the stability of the sovereignty." Stepped forward. His hands were empty, but his eyes were hard as stone. "That creature just showed the entire galaxy what your family did to the... I think stability is already compromised. You would commit treason for one woman. I would commit treason for the truth. The woman is just a bonus." The Emperor raised his hand to give the order to fire, but his own guards did not move. They had seen the vision too. They knew now what their ruler's dynasty was built upon. "Your Majesty," one of the guards said quietly, "we cannot." IX lowered his hand. For the first time in 400 years of rule, he looked old and tired and very much afraid. the inner seals finally gave way. Commander rushed into the darkness and found Lucy unconscious on the floor, wrapped in midnight fur. The lifted its head as humans entered its cell for the first time in thousands of years. It did not attack. It simply watched as they carried Lucy toward the light. 3 days later, Lucy woke in a medical facility with Commander sitting beside her bed. "You survived," he said, "both of you." The recovering. It used everything it had to broadcast that vision. The doctors say it will take months for it to regain its strength. Lucy closed her eyes and felt tears sliding down her cheeks. And the Emperor. Deposed. The Council is forming a new government. They want humanity to have a seat at the table. Apparently, we impressed them with the whole rescuing a friend from a death trap thing. And the truth about the was quiet for a moment. Everyone knows, the whole galaxy knows. There are monuments being planned, history books being rewritten. It will take generations to fully reckon with what the first emperor did, but the hiding is over. Lucy nodded. It was not justice, not really. They were still gone. Nothing could bring them back, but at least they would be remembered now. At least their story would be told. She was released from the medical facility a week later. Her first destination was the vault, which had been unsealed permanently by order of the new council. She descended through corridors that no longer felt like a nightmare and entered cell 1 to find it empty. Panic seized her heart until she felt a familiar presence behind her. The had changed. It was smaller now, no larger than a panther from Earth. Its midnight fur still absorbed light, and its golden eyes still held galaxies, but it no longer needed to be a god. It had chosen to be something simpler. A companion. "You waited for me," Lucy said. The creature walked to her side and pressed its head against her hand. It sent one final image, the two of them walking together through silver forests on a world that no longer existed, surrounded by ghosts who smiled at the strange pair who had found each other across impossible distances. Lucy knelt and wrapped her arms around this neck. It purred against her chest, and the sound was no longer grief. It was gratitude. It was hope. It was the beginning of something new. They walked out of the vault together, into sunlight that the creature had not felt in nearly 4,000 years. And across the sovereignty, in meeting halls and military bases and humble homes, a new saying began to spread among species who had learned that power was not the same as strength. When you need to reach something unreachable, send a human. They are not afraid of gods or monsters or darkness. They will sit with you in your pain until you are ready to heal. They will be your friend.